We enter this life with no map. No instructions. No plan. Just breath, presence, and the gentle unfolding of awareness. In the beginning, we do not seek to control, we simply are. We cry when we're hungry. We smile when we're safe. We rest when we're tired. There's no resistance, no internal demand for life to be any different than what it is. But as we grow, something changes. We are taught that things should go a certain way. That success means reaching a destination. That love means being good enough. That happiness comes only when we have control over our lives, our surroundings, our future, even our emotions. And so we begin to tighten, slowly, invisibly. We begin to carry a weight we never agreed to hold. This tightening doesn't happen all at once. It begins subtly. The disappointment when someone lets us down. The fear when plans fall apart. The sting of failure when effort doesn't lead to reward. Somewhere along the way, a belief is born. If I want to be safe, I need to be in control. And so we begin trying to manage everything, our schedules, our relationships, our image, even the behavior of others. Control becomes our armor, our identity, our religion. We stop living in the present, and start living in strategy. Always thinking ahead. Always preparing. Always on guard. But the Buddha taught something different, something revolutionary. He said that suffering does not arise from what happens to us, but from the way our minds grasp, cling, and demand that things be different. He pointed to the root of dukkha, that deep, subtle dissatisfaction we all carry, and showed us that it comes from resistance. From craving. From our refusal to let life be as it is. And perhaps the most pervasive craving of all is the craving for control. Control feels safe. Predictable. Clean. But in truth, it's a cage. The more we cling to control, the more life feels like a threat. We begin to treat the present moment like a problem to solve, rather than a space to inhabit. We scan conversations for danger. We prepare answers before questions are even asked. We monitor people's expressions for signs of rejection. We overthink every word, every silence, every choice. Not because we're foolish, but because we're afraid. Because somewhere inside, we've convinced ourselves that if we just manage everything carefully enough, we can avoid pain. But suffering doesn't come from lack of control. It comes from the belief that we should have control in the first place. Control is seductive. It tells us, just try harder. Worry sooner. Plan more carefully. But no matter how much we prepare, life remains uncertain. People will still disappoint us. Plans will still unravel. Emotions will still rise and fall like waves. The more we try to hold it all together, the more we realize how fragile that illusion is. And that realization terrifies us, because it threatens the very foundation we've built our identity upon. But here is the beautiful truth: control was never your responsibility. Life was never asking you to be perfect. It was asking you to be present. To let go of control is not to become helpless. It is to become honest. Honest about the fact that we are not in charge of the universe. Honest about the fact that no matter how tightly we grip, change will still come. Loss will still come. Death will still come. And yet, in that honesty, in that surrender, we find something extraordinary: peace. Not a peace built on outcomes or guarantees, but a peace that exists even when things fall apart. The Buddha taught us that true liberation doesn't come from mastering the world, it comes from mastering our relationship to the world. He didn't say, get everything under control. He said, understand the nature of your mind. And when we look closely at the mind, we begin to see that much of our suffering is optional. The tight jaw. The racing thoughts. The clenched heart. These are not caused by the world, they are caused by our reaction to it. They are caused by the belief that life should match our expectations. But life was never meant to obey us. Life is movement. Change. Unfolding. Like a river, it flows, not according to our will, but according to its nature. And when we fight that flow, we suffer. We tire. We break. But when we surrender to it, something incredible happens. We float. We breathe. We find that the river was never against us, we were simply paddling upstream. Control tells us we are separate. That it's us against the world. But Buddhism reminds us that we are not separate at all. We are part of the dance. Part of the flow. Part of the breath that moves through everything. The trees don't cling to their leaves when autumn comes. The sky doesn't fight the passing of a storm. Nature doesn't resist impermanence, only we do. And that resistance is where suffering lives. To let go of control is to return to rhythm. To trust that life moves, not randomly, but wisely. To know that not everything needs your hands on it. Not everything needs your fixing. Not every silence needs to be filled. Not every uncertainty is a threat. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop forcing. You stop demanding that people change. You stop needing life to fit your script. You let it be what it is, and you meet it with presence, not pressure. There is great strength in that kind of surrender. It is not weak to release control, it is powerful. Because to let go is to say, I trust that I can meet whatever comes, not because I control it, but because I no longer fear it. That is real courage. That is the beginning of inner peace. Meditation is the practice of letting go in real time. We sit. We breathe. We notice the urge to control, the need to adjust, to fix, to achieve, and we return to stillness. Again and again, we practice non-interference. Thoughts arise. We don't chase them. Emotions come. We don't push them away. The world turns. We don't try to stop it. In this simple, quiet way, we retrain the nervous system to feel safe in presence. Safe in uncertainty. Safe in not knowing. And slowly, moment by moment, the grip begins to loosen. We become less reactive. Less rigid. We laugh more. We listen more. We soften into life instead of bracing against it. Control begins to fade, not because we no longer care, but because we've learned to care differently. More wisely. More gently. More freely. And in that space, something begins to bloom. Not the illusion of safety, but the reality of peace. A peace not earned through effort, but uncovered through surrender. A peace that says, I no longer need to run. I no longer need to grasp. I no longer need to be anything other than awake in this moment, just as it is. If your heart is tired from trying to hold everything, let this be your permission to release. You do not need to carry it all. You do not need to control the storm. You only need to be the stillness inside it. The witness. The presence. The breath. And in that breath, you will remember, peace is not found in perfection. It is found in the pause. In the silence between efforts. In the letting go. The ego and the illusion of control. If we were to look deeply into the roots of our suffering, we would often find a hidden thread running through it all, a desperate, persistent need to be in control. This need doesn't always shout. It whispers. It hides behind planning, behind anxiety, behind perfectionism and caution. It can look like responsibility or even love. But underneath it all, it is fear, fear that if we stop holding the reins, everything will fall apart. And more than that, we will fall apart. But what is it, truly, that wants control so badly? What is it that cannot let go? In Buddhist psychology, that answer is simple but profound. It is the ego, the sense of a separate, fixed me, who is running the show. The ego is not some villainous force. It's simply the identity we've stitched together from memory, thought, role, and reaction. It's the part of us that says, this is who I am. This is what I need. This is how life should be in order for me to be okay. The ego is always in protection mode. It's always calculating, managing, trying to ensure outcomes. It lives in a constant state of tension, not because it's evil, but because it believes it must do something at all times. It doesn't rest. It can't rest. Because rest would mean surrender, and surrender would mean relinquishing control, and for the ego, that feels like death. But here is the paradox: the more the ego tries to control, the more suffering it creates. Why? Because life doesn't bend to the will of the ego. Life is vast, unpredictable, flowing, impermanent. No matter how tightly we hold on, change will come. Loss will come. Discomfort, uncertainty, endings, they are all woven into the nature of existence. And when the ego resists this reality, it suffers. Buddhism teaches that this suffering is not a punishment, it is a teacher. It shows us where we're holding too tightly. It reveals the places where we are confusing control with security, where we are confusing the self with something solid. The Buddha called this illusion atta, the belief in a permanent, independent self. He taught that all things, including the self, are impermanent, interdependent, and empty of fixed identity. What we call me is not a singular, unchanging thing, but a flow, a river of perceptions, sensations, emotions, and thoughts, constantly arising and passing away. And yet, the ego insists on holding it all together. It builds a fortress of identity and demands that life conform to its structure. But when life doesn't comply, when people disappoint us, when plans unravel, when change arrives uninvited, the ego reacts with anger, fear, control. It says, this shouldn't be happening. It tightens. It resists. It clings. And in that clinging, we suffer. We suffer not because life is cruel, but because we are trying to make life fit into a mold it was never meant to fill. To see through this illusion is to begin to wake up. It is to recognize that we are not separate from the flow of life, we are part of it. We are not the controller, we are a participant. The ocean does not need to grasp the wave to understand it. It only needs to be still and allow the wave to rise and fall. In the same way, we don't need to control life to be at peace. We only need to be present within it. Letting go of control does not mean passivity. It means participation without obsession. It means showing up fully, doing what we can, and releasing the rest. It means trusting the wisdom of the unfolding. But this trust can feel terrifying to the ego. Because the ego believes its safety comes from planning, from prediction, from knowing. To let go of control feels like walking into the unknown, which, in truth, is exactly what life is. And yet, in that unknown lies our true freedom. Freedom is not the ability to control everything. It is the capacity to remain grounded and open when we cannot. When we stop clinging to the illusion of control, something remarkable begins to happen. We become more available to the moment. We listen more deeply. We see more clearly. We stop reacting from fear and start responding from wisdom. We stop trying to fix the flow of life, and instead begin to float within it, not passively, but with presence. The ego wants outcomes. The awakened heart wants alignment. When we are aligned with the truth of impermanence, of interconnection, of emptiness, control is no longer necessary. We move with life, rather than against it. We make choices, yes. We take action, yes. But we no longer believe that our worth, safety, or happiness depends on controlling every piece. This shift is subtle, but it changes everything. From, I must fix this, we move to, I will meet this. From, how do I stop this from happening, we shift to, how can I stay open in the midst of this? That's the power of non-control. Not weakness. Not apathy. But courageous surrender. Not giving up, but waking up. You may notice this in daily life. When something doesn't go according to plan, do you tighten, or do you breathe? When someone doesn't act how you hoped, do you cling, or do you listen? When you feel fear, do you try to control, or do you allow yourself to feel it fully, without story? Each of these moments is a portal into deeper presence. The more we practice letting go, the more we realize that most of our suffering was never about what was happening, it was about our relationship to what was happening. Our resistance. Our control. Our fear. When we release the grip, we may find a softness we didn't know was possible. A quiet joy. A strength not built on domination, but on trust. This is not easy work. The ego has been in charge for a long time. It will protest. It will try to take the wheel again and again. That's okay. We don't have to get rid of the ego. We only need to see it clearly. We only need to remember that it is not the whole truth of who we are. We are not the controller. We are the awareness that sees the impulse to control. We are not the fear. We are the presence that holds the fear gently. We are not the wave, we are the ocean, vast and undisturbed. As the ego quiets, a new kind of intelligence emerges, one that is not about planning or managing, but about listening. This is intuitive wisdom. It arises when we stop grasping. It speaks when the noise settles. And it leads us not to perfect outcomes, but to authentic ones. Letting go of control doesn't mean we never care. It means we care deeply, but without attachment. We care without clinging. We love without possessing. We act without demanding guarantees. This is the way of the awakened heart. In the end, we may find that what we were trying to control was never ours to begin with. The people, the outcomes, the future, they were never meant to be owned. They were meant to be met. Touched. Experienced. Honored. And then released. So if you find yourself today in a moment of struggle, of grasping, of fear, pause. Breathe. Soften the grip. Allow life to move without forcing it. Allow others to be who they are. Allow the unknown to remain unknown. You do not have to manage it all. You do not have to predict it all. You only have to return to presence. Again and again. This is the freedom that the Buddha spoke of. Not the freedom of having life your way, but the freedom of being at peace even when it isn't. And that freedom begins the moment you stop needing to control. Letting go is not giving up, it's waking up. Letting go. It's a phrase we hear often, in spiritual teachings, in self-help books, in quiet advice from those who've lived a little longer. And yet, few things are more misunderstood. In a world driven by ambition and assertion, letting go can sound like defeat. Like giving up. Like walking away. We mistake it for weakness, a kind of passivity, a resignation, a retreat from responsibility. But in Buddhism, letting go is not giving up. It is not apathy. It is not indifference. It is not abandoning effort or care. Letting go, in its truest sense, is waking up from the illusion that you were ever in control in the first place. Waking up from the dream that you needed to force life into a shape before you could be at peace. It is awakening to a reality far deeper than the one the ego clings to. To let go is not to walk away from life, it is to finally step into it with open eyes and an open heart. At the core of this teaching lies a paradox: the more we cling, the more we suffer. And the more we release, the more life flows through us, and the more deeply we are able to love, to act, to serve. The Buddha did not teach us to withdraw from life, but to meet it directly, without resistance, without grasping, without illusion. Letting go begins with a quiet shift, a recognition that trying to control everything is exhausting and futile. That no matter how much we plan, worry, manipulate, or strive, life will unfold on its own terms. People will come and go. Health will rise and fall. Praise will turn to criticism. Fortunes will shift. The only thing that remains is awareness, this moment, right here, as it is. To let go, then, is to trust in that awareness. It is to stop waging war with what is. Not because we don't care, but because we see more clearly. We recognize that clinging is not love. That control is not safety. That resistance is not strength. And this shift doesn't happen all at once. It happens in moments. Small, sacred moments when we catch ourselves tightening, and choose instead to soften. When we catch ourselves spinning stories, and choose instead to return to breath. When we want to force something, but instead, we stay still and listen. This is what awakening looks like. Not lightning bolts. Not sudden enlightenment. But the quiet decision, again and again, to let life be what it is, and to meet it with presence rather than control. One of the most misunderstood ideas in Buddhism is non-attachment. People think it means detachment, as if we're supposed to float above our lives, untouched, unmoved, unbothered. But that's not what the Buddha meant. Non-attachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care deeply, but without clinging. You love, but you don't grasp. You act, but you don't demand. Think of the way a flower opens. It does not force its petals open. It does not control the sunlight or the rain. It simply follows its nature. It opens when the time is right, and lets go when the season ends. That's the kind of letting go the Buddha taught. A letting go that honors life's rhythms, not one that resists them. So often, our suffering comes not from what's happening, but from our refusal to let it happen. We want life to go our way. We want people to behave the way we imagine. We want to hold on to youth, to love, to certainty. But life has other plans. It moves in cycles. It rises and falls. And the more we try to hold on, the more we suffer. Letting go, then, is not failure. It is wisdom. When a relationship ends, letting go does not mean you didn't love enough. It means you loved fully, and now it is time to release. When a plan falls apart, letting go doesn't mean you were weak. It means you trust that another path is unfolding. When illness comes, or loss arrives, letting go does not mean you don't care. It means you choose peace over resistance. It is not easy. The ego will fight. It will say, don't let go. You're losing. But the heart knows better. The heart knows that holding on too tightly only deepens the pain. And the soul, the part of you that has always known, the soul longs not for control, but for freedom. Letting go is the gateway to that freedom. Imagine you're holding a rope that's burning your hands. And yet you hold on, thinking, if I just grip harder, maybe I can fix this. But the rope keeps burning. And only when you finally let go, only when your hands are free, can the healing begin. That's what we do with thoughts, with people, with identities, with expectations. We hold on long past the point of pain. Because the ego is terrified of empty hands. It wants to cling to something, anything, to feel real. But Buddhism invites us into a different kind of reality. A deeper one. It invites us to be. In Zen, there's a saying, let go or be dragged. And this is not meant to be cruel, it's meant to be kind. Because life will move with or without your permission. The seasons will change. Your body will age. Loved ones will pass. And if you resist, you will be dragged through it all with fear. But if you let go, if you soften, if you trust, then life becomes less of a fight, and more of a dance. Letting go doesn't mean you don't try. It means you try without attachment to results. You plant seeds, knowing that the harvest is not yours to control. You speak truth, knowing that others may not hear it. You love with your whole heart, knowing that loss is not the end of love, but part of its shape. In the end, the only thing we ever truly control is how present we are, how awake, how aware, how open we remain. Letting go is an act of presence. It's saying, I choose to be here, now, without needing this moment to be different. It is the deep breath in grief. The soft smile in uncertainty. The open palm in the face of change. And the beauty is, letting go is not a one-time act. It's a practice. It's a way of walking through the world. Every day, we're given chances to release. To release the story we're telling about how things should be. To release the tension in our shoulders. To release the fear that's gripping our chest. To release the need to always be right, always be strong, always be in charge. In these moments, we wake up. We remember that we are not here to conquer life, we are here to live it. Fully, openly, honestly. Without armor. Without expectation. Without fear. Letting go is not giving up. It is the opposite. It is showing up, not as the person who must control, but as the one who is ready to meet life as it is. And when we do this, something changes. We laugh more. We breathe more deeply. We stop arguing with what's already happened. We stop trying to change people who don't want to change. We stop trying to make the past different. We stop waiting for the future to make us whole. We arrive. And in that arrival, we find a peace that no amount of control could ever bring. A peace that says, I don't need life to be perfect. I just need to be present for it. That is the gift of letting go. The present moment is all you control. There is a truth so simple, so obvious, that we often overlook it in our restless search for control. The only thing you can ever truly hold is this moment. Not the past, it has already dissolved into memory, shifting like sand with every retelling. Not the future, it has not yet arrived, and may never unfold the way your mind imagines. Only now, this breath, this heartbeat, this flicker of awareness, is real. And yet, most of us live somewhere else. We replay yesterday, trying to make sense of what went wrong. Or we leap ahead into tomorrow, crafting scenarios, chasing outcomes, building castles of hope or worry. All the while, this moment, the only place life actually happens, slips quietly by, unnoticed. Buddhist wisdom is radical not because it offers complex theology, but because it brings us back to what we already know deep down. Peace is not something you achieve. It is something you return to, again and again, in this moment. This is why the Buddha placed such emphasis on mindfulness, sati, the practice of coming home to now. To be mindful is not to watch your thoughts with sterile detachment. It is to live fully awake in your own experience. To know the sensation of your feet on the floor, the temperature of the air, the rise and fall of the breath. To hear the sound of a bird, the rustle of leaves, the aching honesty of silence. When we arrive in the present, we discover something startling. This moment has always been enough. Not because it is always pleasant. But because it is real. Because it is alive. Because it is the only moment in which healing, love, clarity, and transformation are even possible. All your regrets, they live in the past. All your anxieties, they live in the future. But your peace, your sanity, your freedom, they are waiting here, in the now. It sounds simple. But to live in the present moment is a profound act of courage. Because to be present means we must let go of our illusions, illusions of control, of permanence, of certainty. It means we must face things as they are, not as we why. We must feel the ache of impermanence. We must see the rawness of our own longing. We must confront the truth that we don't know what comes next. But in doing so, we step into something far more powerful than prediction or planning. We step into life itself. The ego, the part of us that wants to control, thrives on time. It keeps score. It strategizes. It rehearses and rewinds. But awareness, the quiet, witnessing part of us, exists only now. And when we live from that place, we discover we no longer need to control everything. We simply need to show up. There's an old Zen teaching. When walking, just walk. When eating, just eat. It sounds laughably basic, but that's the point. Most of us are never just doing one thing. We eat while scrolling. We walk while worrying. We breathe, but without noticing that we're alive. And this split, this fragmentation, is the source of much of our suffering. Because when we are divided, we miss our lives. We miss our children's laughter. We miss the feel of sunlight on our skin. We miss the moment someone needed us to simply be present, not to fix, not to solve, but to listen. The present moment is not always comfortable, but it is always complete. It holds everything, sorrow, joy, confusion, clarity, and asks only that we be with it. And this, being with, is powerful. It softens our need to control. It opens space for insight, for compassion. When we are present, we are no longer living from fear or habit. We are living from awareness. And that changes everything. You don't need to know what comes next. You don't need to fix the past. You need only to show up for now. Think of how many moments you've missed, chasing ones that never arrived. Think of how many conversations you were halfway inside, lost in your own thoughts. Think of how many sunsets passed unnoticed because you were worrying about tomorrow's weather. We cannot get those moments back. But we can begin again, now. This is the quiet revolution of mindfulness. It doesn't promise you control. It promises you presence. And from presence, peace grows, not like lightning, but like a seed. You begin by noticing. The breath enters. You feel it. It leaves. You feel that too. A thought arises, you notice it, gently. You don't follow it. You don't fight it. You come back. Again and again, you come back. This is not failure. This is practice. This is awakening. Letting go of control doesn't mean you do nothing. It means you do what needs to be done, but without grasping. Without fear. Without trying to guarantee an outcome. It means you give your full attention to this one task, this one word, this one moment, and then release it, like an exhale. You send the email, and let it go. You speak your truth, and let it go. You love with your whole heart, and let it go. This moment becomes your home, not because it is perfect, but because it is all you truly have. And in that space, between control and surrender, something quiet and luminous arises. Trust. Trust that this moment, even if it is difficult, is not against you. Trust that life, even in its uncertainty, is still sacred. Trust that your presence is enough. This is not blind optimism. It is not pretending that pain doesn't exist. It is meeting reality on its own terms, and choosing to stay open. Choosing not to armor your heart. Choosing to let each moment teach you what it has come to teach. In Buddhism, we are taught to greet each moment as a guest, even the ones we didn't invite. Suffering, joy, boredom, restlessness, they all come and go. The moment we try to hold one or push another away, we suffer. But when we allow, when we say, yes, this too, we are free. You don't need to control everything to be at peace. You need only to be present for what is here. The mind will wander. That's okay. The body will ache. That's okay. Life will not go according to plan. That's okay too. Because peace was never about perfection. It was always about presence. So breathe. Feel this moment as it is. Not as you wish it to be. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw soften. Let the grip around how it should be gently dissolve. You are here. And here is enough. This is where your power is. Not in what might happen. Not in what already did. But in this breath. This step. This choice. Let the present moment be your refuge. Let it be your practice. Let it be the one place you don't need to control, because it welcomes you exactly as you are. Control is rooted in fear, and fear is an illusion. There is a quiet fear that hides beneath most of our need for control. It rarely announces itself. It doesn't always come as a scream or a panic. Often, it shows up as tension in the chest, as that restless feeling of needing to manage, fix, or prevent something. It comes as hypervigilance, scanning the horizon of life for potential threats. It comes as perfectionism, as overthinking, as endless planning. It wears 1,000 masks. But if you look closely, behind every grasping for control, you will find the same trembling emotion: fear. Fear of failure. Fear of being hurt. Fear of the unknown. Fear of not being enough. Fear that if you don't hold everything tightly, it will all fall apart, or worse, that you will fall apart. This fear is not shameful. It is human. It is ancient. It is woven into our biology. Our nervous systems evolved to protect us. But Buddhist wisdom teaches us that while fear may arise naturally, we do not need to become its servant. Because fear, like everything else, is impermanent. And often, it is based on illusions. Fear is a projection, a mental movie of a future that hasn't happened. It plays scenarios that feel so vivid, so urgent, that we forget they're not real. They are thoughts. They are shadows. And yet, we try to control our lives based on those shadows. We micromanage conversations that haven't taken place. We avoid risks because of stories we've told ourselves about failure. We stay in safe, limited versions of ourselves because fear whispers, "Don't go too far, you might not survive it." But here's what Buddhist practice helps us realize. It is not life that's scaring you. It's your imagination. The mind, particularly when untamed, is a master of fear-making. It takes a moment of uncertainty and spins it into catastrophe. It takes one failure and paints it as permanent. It takes one rejection and declares it a referendum on your worth. And in response to all this imagined danger, we try to gain control. We make plans. We build walls. We anticipate. We overwork. We try to control other people's opinions. We try to control our own emotions. We try to control outcomes that are never really ours to command. But the more we grasp, the more fear grows. Because control doesn't soothe fear, it feeds it. The more we rely on control, the more fragile we become. Because deep down, we know, we cannot control everything. We cannot stop pain from entering our lives. We cannot guarantee that others will love us, understand us, or stay. We cannot predict what tomorrow will bring. And so we live in constant tension, stretching ourselves thin, bracing for impact, clinging to false securities. The Buddha did not teach us to conquer fear through control. He taught us to see through fear. To examine it. To sit with it, gently, without running away. To look into its face and ask, "Is this true? Is this happening now? Is this who I really am?" And often, fear has no answer. Because fear cannot survive the light of awareness. It thrives in the fog, in automatic reactions, in avoidance, in distraction. But when we sit down with fear, in meditation, in stillness, in honest inquiry, we find that much of what we feared was made of smoke. Buddhist monks, in their years of practice, encounter fear not as an enemy but as a teacher. In solitude, in silence, in long hours of sitting with nothing to distract them, they meet the fears most of us keep buried: fear of death, fear of meaninglessness, fear of pain. But instead of trying to outrun these feelings, they bow to them. They investigate them. They breathe into them. And in doing so, they find a deeper truth. Fear loses its power when you stop resisting it. This doesn't mean you enjoy fear. It doesn't mean you invite suffering. It means you stop trying to control your way out of fear, and instead, feel your way through it. When we stop running from fear, we notice something remarkable: it shifts. It softens. It reveals its emptiness. And what remains is clarity. Courage. Presence. Because what if fear wasn't a stop sign, but a doorway? What if fear shows up not to punish you, but to invite you into a more honest relationship with life. Most of our attempts to control come from the belief that, I am not safe unless everything goes according to plan. But in Buddhist practice, we learn something different. We learn that safety does not come from the outside. It does not come from certainty. It does not come from other people behaving the way we want them to. True safety comes from inner steadiness. From knowing that whatever arises, you can meet it. And that capacity, to meet life with openness, is born not from control, but from practice. Practice being still when fear arises. Practice breathing instead of reacting. Practice asking, is this fear real, or is it a story? Practice turning toward fear with compassion, not judgment. Over time, you begin to trust that you do not need to control everything to be okay. You begin to see fear not as a signal to tighten your grip, but as a reminder to loosen it. There's a Zen saying, let go or be dragged. Trying to control life from a place of fear is like trying to hold a river in your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the more exhausted you become. And the more life slips away. But when you release the grip, when you float instead of fight, something magical happens. You start to move with life, not against it. You start to trust the current. You start to remember that you were never meant to control the river. You were meant to flow. Control is seductive because it offers the illusion of safety. But peace does not come from illusions. Peace comes from presence. From knowing that whatever comes, you will meet it with clarity, with breath, with an open heart. Fear is not your enemy. It is a part of your human experience. But it is not the truth of who you are. The truth of who you are is much bigger than fear. It is awareness. It is stillness. It is love. It is the space in which fear arises, and eventually fades. So the next time you feel the urge to control, to fix, to force, to protect yourself from the future, pause. Ask yourself gently, what am I afraid of right now? Is this fear based in reality, or in a story? What happens if I soften, even a little? You don't have to dismantle all fear overnight. You don't have to become fearless. You only have to be honest. To meet fear with compassion. To notice its presence, and then choose, not to act from it, but to observe it. And in that observation, the spell breaks. Fear becomes what it truly is, passing weather. Not a command, but a cloud. You are the sky. You are the vastness in which fear appears, and disappears. You are not the fear. You never were. And when you realize that, something profound shifts. You no longer need to control life in order to feel safe. You find safety in surrender. You find courage not in avoiding fear, but in embracing it. This is the path of the awakened heart. Not the path of control, but the path of trust. Not the path of domination, but of presence. So let fear arise. Let it move through you like wind through leaves. You don't have to believe it. You don't have to obey it. You only have to see it. To hold it. To let it go. Because beyond fear, there is something vaster waiting. Freedom.